Hi there, this is Sean, the Honest Book Reviewer, with another book review. In this video, we're discussing His Majesty's Dragon, written by Naomi Novik. It's the first book of Temeraire. It's a fantasy series. I think it has about 7 or 8 books in it so far. I've just discovered it recently, but if you love fantasy series, you don't even have to like dragons, because this book features a lot of dragons, and the main dragon in the book is called Temeraire, hence the books are called the Books of Temeraire. But you don't have to like dragons to like this series. I'm finding it a really great and gripping series. I loved this first book. It was such a well-written and well-constructed book. The characters are just really engaging, especially the dragon characters. There's quite a few of them in this book, and they're all given different personalities, and all the personalities shine through quite well. Let's talk more about this book now. At the start of this book, we're into a battle scene straight away, but not with dragons, with naval vessels. And our main character, Captain Will Lawrence, is a captain of a vessel in the British Navy. They're battling against a French ship, and they overpower the French ship and take control of it. And on this ship, there's a few bits of treasure and some things they can take and use, but there's also a box, and this box has a dragon egg. And there's a person on the ship who knows a bit about dragons, and he says that this dragon egg is about to hatch. It could hatch at any time. And according to the people in England, they believe that as soon as the dragon hatches, somebody has to be there to bond with the dragon and to get accepted by that dragon, so they form a friendship, a bond for life basically. Whether it's the life of the dragon or the life of the human, they bond for life. So Will gets everybody to put their name in a hat who wants to. He puts his name in a hat as well. Somebody else's name is drawn out. But when the egg hatches, the dragon doesn't bond with that person, and Will steps in thinking he better bond with this dragon or they could lose a dragon. The dragon just might fly away and become feral. And he does bond with the dragon. The dragon accepts him. He names the dragon Temeraire, and they become friends or comrades in a way. And because of this, he knows that he won't be able to be a naval officer anymore, because he suspects that with this bond with the dragon, he'll be shifted into the aviators. And the aviators are the armed force group that rides dragons into battle. So he demotes himself and promotes his second officer, Riley, into the position of captain on this vessel, and he sets about taking care of the dragon, making sure it's fed, bonding with it. And we find out quite early on this dragon is quite special. He's quite intelligent. He likes to have books read to him, and he likes to explore, whether in books or around his environment. He seems very inquisitive, and this dragon's character just shines through from the very first moment we meet him, and almost at once I fell in love with this character. This dragon is just amazing, and in my opinion, this dragon just makes this whole book, as do the other dragons in the series. The dragons in this book are just far better characters than the humans in almost every way. So much of the first part of the book is about that first bonding over a few weeks between Will and Temeraire. Then they're shipped off to get trained in the aviators, and they're shipped off to Scotland, and they're trained very heavily. They have to learn in a matter of weeks what people take years to learn. And it's quite interesting that the main trainer at this area is a dragon themselves. So I found that quite fascinating, that we have a dragon training other dragons and humans how to act in a group, in a squadron of dragons when they're flying, how to work on the formations, how to change formations, how to attack, how to defend, how to do all different things in the air. And Will and Temeraire seem to pick this up quite quickly. I think Temeraire picks it up quicker than Will does, and we see that in a few different things throughout this book, that Temeraire seems to pick things up much more quickly. He's very, very clever. And we also see that he's different than other dragons in England. Very different. He's black, very dark, almost black, and he looks different in his shape as well to other dragons in England. And that's part of Temeraire's personality coming through as well, when he notices this when he's amongst other dragons. He sees that he's different, and we see him try to come to terms with that, try to accept himself amongst the dragons that look different than he does, and they seem to act differently as well. They're not as clever as he is. He seems to be a lot more clever and a lot more inquisitive and faster, and seems to be able to move in different ways than other dragons in England can. And that just seems to make him think that he's different, and that's where the whole bond between Will and Temeraire comes into the forefront, because we just see really great moments where Will is comforting and reassuring Temeraire that even though he's different, he's really special, and that Will's always there to look after him and look out for him. And that bond between these two main characters is really special, and it's one of the strengths in this book, in my opinion. This bond is just really amazing, and it's almost adorable, really, this bond. And it just feels like a bond between friends, about not companions, but more friends. Not a pet even. They're just friends, these two, and that friendship is really strong. Another great thing about this book, when they move to this area to be trained in the aviators, is we get to see other dragons. And I loved meeting those other dragons because they're also different in personality and also look. We have dragons that are quite huge, we have dragons that are small, and we have dragons with different personalities. And they're treated in different ways as well by their handlers, and that comes through a lot. And the dragons just shine through as these remarkable creatures, really special. They give their all, and they just seem so loving and so willing to do anything for their handlers. And the handlers are different. Some handlers really adore their dragons, some handlers mistreat them in certain ways, and that's really hard to see in this book. And one dragon, Levitus, stood out so much to me in this book as well. He's just an amazing character, and I just really liked Levitus, and he'll stay in my mind for quite some time. Before I read this novel, I had no idea how a novel with dragons set in the time where England and France were at war, and Napoleon was the leader of the French army at the time in this book as well. So it's a historic novel, but with dragons. And I had no idea how that would work. I was wondering, would it be a disaster? How can they merge dragons into this book? But the author does an amazing job. It's written in such a way that just feels natural, it feels real, and that's quite amazing. And I just love the way the author created this world. And in this book we see a very narrow part of the world. We really focus on England, and only small parts of England. The ship at the very start, where the dragons hatched, and then the training ground. We have a few battle scenes in different parts as well, but we don't explore those areas very much. And even though we see the French forces from a distance, really, we don't see them, and we don't get immersed into the French culture in this book. We just see them through the eyes of English forces and our main characters. So in this book we just see a very small section of the world, and I'm hoping in future books we see a much broader view of the world the author creates, because that would be something to see. Temeraire is the main dragon character in this book, and the series is named after him. He's an amazing character. He's so inquisitive, so thoughtful. I like the way how he cares about other dragons as well, not just himself. And I like the way how he cares about Will. They're really friends in this book, and that comes through quite strongly. I loved his learning curve. I loved his character growth in this story, and the dragons really have character growth. He has these little oddities, little quirks that other dragons don't, and that comes from him spending his first few weeks of his life on this ship without any other dragons. On a ship he comes to love the water, and he learns how to swim. But other dragons don't really like to swim that much. But it's great to see that that changes a little bit in this story. And Temeraire encourages other dragons to do different things, to want different things and think more independently like he does. And that was really good to see as well, because he comes almost like a leader in a way for some dragons, and those bonds between Temeraire and other dragons are really special as well. Captain Will Lawrence is the main human character in the book and the handler of Temeraire, the one who gives him his name and forms that bond. He is an interesting character. So in this setting, he comes from a high-ranking family, and that means that he's a captain. it just seems that it fits in that setting where people of higher ranking in higher ranking families get the cushier jobs in the armed forces, and other people get the more, frontline jobs, the ones who are risking their lives more. And that seems to fit the whole setting of England at the time. But it also gives him a bit of an edge, because he doesn't think like other people in the same ranking or higher rankings. He doesn't think the way they do, and he seems to care about other people more, and seems to care about equality a bit more. There are moments where he uses his position to get his way, but there are also moments where he uses it to help people, and I found that quite interesting. And I wonder if that's going to be a theme with Will through the books, that he's going to almost grow in certain ways in this series, or use his influence to help dragons or help people when he sees injustices being done. And I think that will add a really good element to his character, because I can see it coming through a little bit in this book. I have to mention Levitus in this section. Levitus is a small dragon. He's a courier because of his size and speed, but he's very special. He comes across almost like this puppy dog, just wanting affection and attention, wanting to be told he's done a good job. That comes through time and time again. And he's such a pure soul in this story, and it's really hard to see the way he's treated by his handler in this story. He's not treated the best, and he just wants to be treated well, wants to be told he's done a good job, that he's a good dragon, that he's giving his all, and that's all he wants. And there are some really pivotal moments with Levitus in this book. I'm not going to give them away, but he's a really great character, and he's a character that's going to stay with me for quite some time. And I never thought I'd say that about a dragon character in a book, but this character is given such a great personality, and it bursts from the page. He's just an amazing character, in my opinion. I enjoyed this book very much, and it just makes me really hungry to want to read the rest of this series. I'm so glad I discovered this series, and I can't believe that this series has been around for so long, and I've never read it. I actually haven't heard of Naomi Novik before I came to know about these books, and I just got to get myself back into the fantasy world, fantasy game really, and get to know all these other authors that I never read, because there's so many good authors out there in the fantasy fiction genre that I haven't read enough of them. This book I rate a 4.5 out of 5. It's almost perfect. There's little things in there, just little things that I think could have been tweaked to make it perfect, but it's almost perfect, almost there. It is an amazing read. It is an amazing book, and I do recommend that if you love fantasy fiction, you give this a go. You don't even have to like dragons, because the dragons are such great characters, you may even forget for a moment that they are dragons. As I read through this series, I will do a video on each book and put it up on my channel. If you don't want to miss out on those videos, check out my channel and subscribe. I also have a fantasy playlist on my channel. It should be on your screen now.